What if you, God forbid, let such a bastard come to power, and tomorrow he doesn't like you, he'll pick up the phone and say, arrest you. Why? I don't like you. Collaborator. He'll call you a collaborator. And you understand, and I publicly say once again to Prytula, come to Washington. I don't live in Washington either. Let's meet in Washington. And we go through this publicly. If you're a man, don't touch my mother. If he insults me there, let him insult me. A lot of people insult me. They can call me whatever they want, I don't care. But I got upset about my mother. I'll deal with Prytula very seriously. After the war, Ukraine needs to declare an external default, and the new president should do it. A cop comes to her and says, Yipo, you pay me thousands of dollars and carry on. Globalist propaganda tells young people, especially Zoomers, not to buy cars or apartments. Just rent everything. They say all you need are sneakers to walk around Paris, and not to worry about anything else because they'll handle it. Consider the climate, support it, but most importantly, draw conclusions. Because if you voted for Zelensky, he disappointed you, you all got upset, and tomorrow you vote for Prytula or say for Zaluzhny, then you're not a smart person. And Ukraine just won't become anything in a moment.
Welcome to the Liberty US UA channel. Today we have Denis Yelysevych with us, an entrepreneur and political figure. Welcome, Mr. Denis.
Hello, Tatiana. Hello, viewers.
Please subscribe to our channel, give us likes, subscribe to Denis's channel, and subscribe to Liberty TV if you want to watch short clips of our conversation. Today we will discuss political news and events happening in Ukraine. But let's start with your personal matters, Denis, because on various platforms people are discussing your conflict with Prytula, with Serhiy Prytula for some reason. So I personally read about this and saw the comment he wrote. He says, you and your buddies Oleshki, Mos and Mosichuks, Shari, Shaposhnikovs are traitors. This is a little nest of traitors to Ukraine who have hidden in Austria, in Spain, or in America. And you will live your whole miserable life as collaborators. And then everything will happen to you in the usual way. The Russians will use you and throw you away like used trash. Why is your mother being dragged into this scandal as well? Tell us, what's the reason? What is this conflict and what caused it?
Well, you've already read his last message to me, but it all started when he wrote, your mom mocked too much and now she's facing court for justifying Russian aggression. And then there was a stream of nastiness directed at me, saying I'll be deported to the US and I'll end up in jail, meaning I'll be sitting in prison in Ukraine. Look, let people know right away, this Tatiana doesn't just concern me, I'll tell you that right away. This concerns you and any Ukrainian on the planet Earth, especially those who live or will live in Ukraine. Look, my mom is nowhere near politics. She got into a bad situation because of me, because I'm doing this work. She made the mistake of reposting my stream once, where I criticized Yermak and talked about everything that Nabu is now saying about him. In retaliation, they opened a criminal case. Even Putin in Russia doesn't do things like that. Do you understand? I know that's how it's done in Iran. Even families of dissidents are persecuted. Look, then he says, you'll be deported to the US. How do you know that? What if I actually have an American passport? Well, you never know. Or maybe something else. Why should I be deported? Third, you'll be sitting in jail. For what? He didn't write what for. Did I break the law? Did I do something bad in Ukraine? I think I only did good things. And people need to understand that if, God forbid, you let such a bastard come to power and tomorrow he doesn't like you, he'll pick up the phone and say, arrest him. Why? I don't like him. Collaborator. He'll call you a collaborator. And you understand, I have a feud with Zelensky. But I want to tell you, and with Yermak too, these two opponents of mine, they are, of course, scoundrels, but not boors. You understand? But Prytula, he's a boor. Because all his behavior and his whole manner point to that. That post you read further, he mentioned a number of figures there. I have nothing to do with any of those figures. I've never seen any of them in my life. I have the same kind of feud with Sherry as I do with Prytula, because on the day my mother was arrested, he was making blatant fakes in Photoshop and gloating. That's it. I think all his actions are against Ukraine, which is why I dislike him. And we have our own issues there. I don't know a single person. I haven't seen any of these people in person. But the goal of that bastard Prytula is to show that you have to admit all those names are viewed very negatively in Ukraine.
You gather them, or you trick them, or you organize them. That's somehow how they present you. That's exactly what Diakui was.
Вот это же есть работа пропаганды. And you understand, Mozia Masichuk doesn't hide the people he works with. He shows it in videos. It's everywhere. I don't know whether to call it a clan or what. It's their group of people. And as for Oleska, I don't know him at all. I know nothing about his life. I'm grateful to him, as he was one of the few who supported me publicly. I appreciate that. That's all. I don't know anything else about this person. I had conflicts with him as a citizen before the war because of his business and activities I disliked. That's all. That's what Prytula got involved in, Prytula. Now, an important, very, very important point, you understand, Tatiana, to go after mothers and parents is the act of the lowest scum, really. Because Prytula is not a government official. He's not an intelligence officer. That's the lowest scum. And the viewers should all ask themselves a question. By the way, just a quick remark. All of this was on social media, and in the comments, everyone supported me, thousands of likes. He wrote his post on K, under which all of this blew up. Everyone there hates him. All of Ukraine hates him. They consider him a fraud. That's what happened. Regarding Sputnik, people really need to think about who Prytula is, who this person is without the war. Who is this person without the war? Nobody's sorry. I just want to say he's a third-rate clown from the oligarch Pinchuk's channel. And you see, Tatiana, Zelensky is KVN, and this one is KVN too. But I have to admit, Zelensky is on a much higher level. We have to be fair, even though he's my enemy, but it's a much higher level. This guy's a jerk, and his relative is also a jerk. His brother-in-law, his wife's brother. Komutinik is an oligarch. Just Google it. Komutinik is a billionaire, an oligarch, 17 years in politics, and they come from a simple family. I personally have nothing to do with Komutinik, but we have mutual acquaintances who told me that he's a man of principle. So where are the principles of Prytula? I'm addressing Komutinik, who lives in Monaco. Where are Prytula's principles? Maybe remind him that going after other people's mothers has consequences within the law. They think this power is eternal. Prytula is not part of the green regime. He's just cooperating with them temporarily. Prytula is connected to Komutinik, Pinchuk, the Soros crowd, and this foundation is all about politics. So I'll ask again, who is Prytula without this foundation? Now, Tatiana, people call him a volunteer. Yes, you always say that Prytula is a volunteer. I actually took the time, I just opened Google for you and anyone can check me. What is the primary definition of volunteer? A volunteer is a person who, without compensation, engages in socially useful activities, dedicating their free time, energy, and skills to helping those in need, protecting nature, and developing social, cultural, and sports projects. Well, in this case, it's about politicians and politics. Does he fit this definition? No. Because he builds his political career on this, he collects money from others, and of course, he doesn't do it for free. Or tell me, what has Prytula lived on all these years? How does he support himself? He's not working as an actor currently. And he's just a figure chosen by those two clans I mentioned. A face that was well known and recognizable. The fact that he's stingy, they thought, would be overlooked. They thought it would work. For a while it did work, and now he's fronting this foundation. Now I have the following questions. You're a great volunteer. But how much of your own money have you given to the armed forces of Ukraine? How much? Show me. Can I say how much I gave? At first, not yesterday, but in the first days of the war. It was highest in the early days and months of the war. Let him tell where he was on February 24th, 2022. I can tell everything minute by minute. And where was he? Maybe in a bunker, since it turned out that many, like Mustafa Nayem, were in a bunker under guard. This isn't the first time this person has been rude to me. Do you recall what he said there? We won't repeat it on air. He was also rude to the military in his messages. He threatened someone, saying military intelligence guys would come for him. Right. So, Tatiana, who has done more for Ukraine? I have done more for democratic Ukraine in my whole life than Prytula has, 1,000,000 times over. And Prytula works for a dictatorial Ukraine. That's not the country I live in and not the country I will live in. I will live in a democratic Ukraine.
You tell him that you are ready to take a lie detector test with him. But in America, if, for example, it were in Ukraine,
Our authorities guaranteed in Ukraine that if you come to Ukraine, you will be taken to a lie detector test. People know about it publicly. Everyone knew about this. Did you agree to the radio interview or not?
Even if I lived in Kyiv today and this happened, I wouldn't go to a lie detector test in Kyiv because they're all under the control of the security services and I just don't trust them. This can be moved to Europe. When I'm in Europe, I'll let you know we can do it in Europe. Only, of course, in a country where I won't be afraid to be there. In a decent country. So, and why doesn't Washington work? Can you tell me, please? The capital of the USA, the most democratic country in the world. They're top-class specialists. You can't bribe them. What are Yelysevych or Prytula to them? They just do their job for money. Let's do it. But I suggested it the way you said. I said, you asked me 3 questions. He can ask, right?
Yes.
You're a Russian agent who collaborated with Russia, right? The detector will reveal everything. I have questions for him because I dream and sense that invoices at this foundation are inflated. The invoices are being inflated. And this is being supervised from Monaco, as I said. Whether it's a vision or just my imagination, I don't know. But I would ask him this question publicly. But eventually, Tatiana, this fund will face a real audit. After the war, things will settle and we'll find out if it's truly a fund or just big business. Has it made a lot of money or supplied much to the army? Of course. You can't collect billions of hryvnias and give nothing. Many Hur officers and military personnel are satisfied, all of them. But Tatiana, imagine if someone else had organized the fund. We're not discussing Prytula, just another person. Or a group of people. They organized a fund and collected $1 billion. Let's say they gave 800 million to the army and stole 200 million. Will the military be satisfied with what those $800 million bought? Yes. But 200 million was stolen. So how would you feel about that? I would see them as scoundrels who stole during the war. Huh? Actually, I want to say something to you, to people who are even thrilled by this after everything I've said. Why the hell are these funds collecting billions? The fund is practically buying armored vehicles for the front. What? Artillery too? Are you out of your mind? The state should be doing this. The Ministry of Culture. But when we have KVN at the helm, KVN with Prytula, this video should be called Jokers and Comedians Ruined Our Country. That's how it turned out. And once again, I'm publicly saying this to Prytula. Come to Washington. I don't live in Washington either. Let's come to Washington. And let's do this publicly. If you're a man, you shouldn't bring up my mother. If he insulted me there, well, he insulted me. Many people insult me. They can call me whatever they want. I don't care. The continuation, I reacted because of my mother. I'm now going to focus closely on Prytula.
He's interested in where your money comes from. He says that you exploit sensitive topics, apparently for financial reasons. People once wrote to you during the last stream, I think, if I'm not mistaken, that you don't share your life on Instagram and they would be interested to see how you live. And you said, I'm not an Insta blogger. That happened. You say you don't post many Instagram photos because you're not an Insta blogger. So these people who reach out to you with such questions, they're interested in knowing who finances you? And do you live well enough that someone could say you really are being financed by someone?
Look, regarding Instagram, I'm not a lifestyle blogger. That's not my thing. All my life, after professional sports, I've been in business. Before the war, I lived a completely private life. I didn't even have social media, Tatiana. Not a single photo. Nothing. I would have continued that way, but life forced me to change. Now I'm talking to you, but I don't plan to give more interviews. Life is just forcing me now. So, second, they want me, a person who left for political reasons, to show them my location 24/7. If I ever posted a couple of photos on Instagram over the years, it means there was a reason for it. And I know how to do it, and when, or what kind of video to shoot for YouTube and where and when. I know exactly why I do all this. So, now what money do I live on? My own. I live on my own money. Since 2012, I've been a businessman working as an entrepreneur, and I live on my own money. And if someone tries to tell me something, show me where the money is coming from. He says there that I collaborated with the Russians. He informed the US State Department that there are Russian agents on their territory. You get it? This is for suckers. The sheep will buy it. They said the same thing about Mendel. But a serious person who understands will say, America would never allow a collaborator with Russia. Russia is officially an enemy of the US by statute, so to speak. They would never allow them to stay. That's why Prytula is a complete scoundrel.
So can this be connected to what people say? Like, what do you live on? Where does your money come from? Well, not Prytula specifically, but there are such accusations that Russia is funding people who spread Russian propaganda. And Ukrainian media who don't like this information say that it's Russian propaganda. You say that they are funded by the state, and in turn they say that those who talk about stopping the war are funded by Russia. So that's just how it ended up, or how should we understand this?
The state doesn't fund anyone. They are funded by propagandists. You see, in politics, there's a mafia term called an obszczak. There's a common fund from which bloggers are financed. I told you about the rates. The top ones with millions of followers get $50,000 draft exemption and a rented apartment. And draft exemption under the protection of the security services. And solving problems if there are any with the special services. In the case of Tolshay and Sternenko, you see, they even have SBU protection. Here are the most vivid examples. So they said, as you say, I do not finance Russian propaganda.
I'm not saying that. You are saying that. I'm saying that's what they say.
If you want to advocate for ending the war and going to negotiations, then that's Russian propaganda. Well, that's what everyone says, not just about you. Everyone who talks about ending the war. Do you agree with that?
No, I can't agree with that. I agree with your point that you're stating a fact, that this is what they say. That's an obvious fact. It's terrible from one perspective, but not because they're talking about Yelysevych or anyone else. In Ukraine, it's not allowed for someone to have a different point of view. Do you understand? That's the scariest thing that people need to realize. Today, those who have joined the powerful against the powerless think they're really cool. But tomorrow things can change, and that's already happened with, for example, Alexei Arestovich. Just look at how he behaved. Arestovych was to me what Prytula is now. I told him, remember this. Today I don't wish him anything bad. I know his worth. I wrote to him in March 2022, remember this day. Arestovych didn't pass this test. You know, when you're rising, remember the people who are next to you. Because when you fall, you'll meet them again. So Arestovych got his first taste of power, and he felt like a god. He didn't pass the test of power. Even though his power was very limited, it was just media influence. He was in power. He immediately started to lose control. This is already a test that shows such a person shouldn't be allowed into politics. Prytula is also failing this test publicly right now. With Arestovych, things happen quickly, in just 3 months. But with this one, it's far more complicated and has lasted for years. He didn't pass the test. I want to highlight again that the issue isn't me. It's that Ukraine doesn't allow differing opinions. I'm a patriot of Ukraine. He is immediately labeled as pro-Russian, but I have so many anti-Putin statements, they won't count them for you. And today, artificial intelligence can give you all an analysis of my posts for the past 4.5 years. Or rather, for 4 years. YouTube can give you anything you want.
But that's the situation. So please, people, support us with comments and likes. I don't know what else we can do. What can you do in a situation like this? When Yermak, who is accused of having an estate in Kozin, they also say Volodymyr has estates. The deputies say, don't talk nonsense. Let Nabu prove it, then talk about it. They are not being held accountable. Your mother is constantly dealing with these courts because she shared your post. So how can you hope for the judicial system to work if there is such a huge dissonance? It's not just a small difference in something, it's a huge dissonance. It's a chasm that seems impossible to get rid of.
Look, remember, we had a broadcast together, and you quoted Mazurashu to me, the member of parliament who often appears on your show. I rewatched it after you sent the link and saw Mazurashu telling people to confront the deputies, write appeals, and not ignore them. Do you remember? Maybe not exactly, but Mazurashu did that.
Every time he ruins it.
Attack the people's deputies, contact them. At the same time, Mazurash himself had a meltdown a few years ago because people were rude to him in the comments. And he blocked, I think, the comments. All the authorities are like that. Even Honcharенko, the opposition politician, has closed comments. That's where it all starts. If you're in politics and your comments are closed, that's it. There's nothing more to talk about. This is for your discussion about courts and everything else. There won't be any order in Ukraine. Today, Ukraine is ruled by the mafia. This mafia is connected to the Russian Federation. Look, Tatiana, it's really great that you started exploring this topic. Look, Yermak, which I'll show on the stream on Friday, Yermak's family is connected to the Russian Federation, to the intelligence services, with the intelligence services. And now Chervinsky is going around telling details. I knew this. Let Chervinsky talk. I don't want to. Let Chervinsky handle this as intelligence officer. But Prytula didn't write. Yermak, you're a collaborator. Your father flew to St. Petersburg after your appointment. You have business with Russian intelligence officers. All your connections lead to Russia, to the FSB or the GRU. Straszna. It's scary. It's scary. And this fool you mentioned, using my photo as if I'm some kind of leader, there are other people in the background. And she wrote like, destroyers of Ukraine or something like that. That's what she called the video. Destroyers of Ukraine. So, excuse me, people, am I the one building a dynasty, a cooperative during the war? Am I the one who stole from the military? Am I the one who allowed the war in our country? You see, the goal of these scoundrels is to convince a fool, there's no other way to put it, a stupid, foolish person that I'm the one destroying Ukraine, not Zelensky or Yermak. You have to admit, this is nonsense, but part of society believes them, and that's where all our problems come from.
Speaking of Chervinsky, you mentioned him. I wrote to him today. I really wanted to see him on our show so that he would come and tell us these details. I would really like to know, see, and hear this. I supported him so much when this happened to him. Let's move on to Poroshenko. Poroshenko, what? Is he a terrorist? Well, not a declared terrorist, but he is under sanctions. Sanctions were imposed on him by the president, and sanctions are imposed on people considered linked to terrorism.
Now, Poroshenko met with Zelensky for the first time since the start of the full-scale war. He had a personal meeting with him.
And it is believed that they talked about what decisions to make, maybe not popular ones, but that this war needs to be ended.
We need to look for some solutions now.
Who do you think came out triumphant after these negotiations, after their joint talks? Zelensky or Poroshenko? Who holds the cards, as Trump says?
Well, 2 years ago, I said that neither of them would have any other choice but to unite in a coalition. I'm not saying it will be public, not public. And I think they did have that agreement. It's just that they attack each other a little bit. They've all discredited each other. Whoever is in power is on top. Well, let's look at this situation. Everything is already clear with Zelensky, from Poroshenko's point of view. You understand, I'm addressing Poroshenko's supporters right now. Do you realize that Poroshenko has betrayed you? Poroshenko has betrayed you. You kept saying that the 73% who voted for Zelensky in 2019 were to blame, that they are all scoundrels, traitors of Ukraine, and that all the troubles are because of them. Your leader told you about the EU, NATO, war, language, faith. He told you all that. Today, Zelensky is saying exactly the same things as Poroshenko. And politically, well, they're not different at all. Why did Poroshenko start chirping? Well, Poroshenko's supporters should be the ones demanding elections. And Poroshenko comes out and says, we had a wonderful meeting. I'm already grateful. Then Knyazhitsky joined in, saying it was a great meeting. That's how it should be during wartime. In reality, most likely Zelensky told him, I'll just share power with you. I'll just share power with you. I'll give you a bit more power. And that's all Poroshenko cares about, Tatiana. That's why I'm saying it again. Poroshenko has now betrayed the Parakabots.
He betrayed them, so to speak, and people were counting on him. Maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think so. I watched your streams closely before, and I think that 2 years ago you said that if you had known Zelensky would do this, you would have voted for Poroshenko. I think that's what happened. Thank you.
Well, in the second round, we only had two choices. Of course, I voted for Zelensky in the second round because I understood that Petro Oleksievich was a disaster, and that was definitely hopeless. I'd be committing myself and Ukraine to hopelessness. I underestimated Zelensky. I mean, I won't repeat myself now for certain reasons and based on certain information. You know, I never really believed him, but he did say he would end the war. He also said he wouldn't touch the Russian language and so on. He also said that Ukraine would be like Switzerland with economic freedom. I didn't expect all that from him, but I also didn't think there would be pressure on freedom of speech. That's for sure. Poroshenko, you see, he actually took private bank from Kolomoisky. I mean, he likes to use the power of the state. It's just that, how can I put it? Well, on the other hand, he held democratic elections and handed over power to Zelensky. So if someone else had won those elections, he would have handed over power to them. That's a plus. Zelensky didn't do that and won't do that. We can already see it. This is the man who said, what was it? I posted it recently. I won't rule for 10 years. But the truth is, it's already the 8th year. Having won just one election, that's really a terrible mistake on our part. But the most important thing, Tatiana, this mistake is stained with Ukraine's blood. But the most important thing is to draw conclusions. Because if you voted for Zelensky, he disappointed you. You all raised your voices. And tomorrow you'll vote for Prytula, or maybe for Zelensky again, or for someone like Zaluzhny. You're not smart, and Ukraine won't become wonderful overnight. In quotation marks.
Literally 2 days ago, we had you on air and we talked about how it seemed like the deputies were coming to their senses. How did that show up? They didn't vote. They voted down the bill imposing a tax on parcels up to 150 euros. That is, they didn't vote for it. You also noticed in this, like many other speakers, that basically they are trying to either defend something or not fall completely under the authorities' control, so to speak. Today, the Verkhovna Rada ratified the agreement with the EU on a loan of 90 billion. They ratified it. This means that Ukraine has officially taken on a rock-solid obligation to fulfill all the EU's tax conditions in exchange for this money. It refers to these parcels, meaning the cancellation by Ukraine of exemptions for international parcels. Large-scale reforms for third-group sole proprietors, a military tax of 5%, which I want to emphasize, includes the maintenance of deputies, and these revenues cannot be verified. unlike before when it was easy to do so. Razumkov is against this, but for now it exists. The introduction of new taxes on income and the obligation to reform customs.
What went wrong?
Смотрите, I mentioned this on another channel recently and I'll repeat it here. It's important for as many people as possible to know. People, ask yourselves this. The IMF has been financing us not for the first time, not only during the war, but also before. And their demands have always been raise taxes, increase fiscal pressure, raise utility costs. In short, make people's lives worse. Why? Because the IMF doesn't have the goal of making Ukraine successful. The IMF's goal, like any bank, is to sell you money. You have collateral. That's it. I don't need anything else. No need. And why has the IMF, ask the question again, people, why has the IMF never said, cut government spending? You had a budget of 40 billion before the war. It should be 25. $15 billion a year, please. Free it up. Cut down on officials, reduce the government apparatus, develop business, shrink the state. They are not interested in this. I understand them. They are not planning to live in Ukraine. They are bankers. They need to lend money. That is not our interest. Not yours, not mine, not the viewers. Our interest is a successful, wealthy Ukraine. Javier Milei, the first thing he did was cut expenses, closed half or up to 70 ministries. He put a lock on the building. We can put a lock on it and hand it over for privatization. National Wealth Fund, that's all. So the IMF, well, I don't want to blame the IMF for destroying Ukraine. They're just doing their job. If we're fools, then we're fools. If scoundrels are in power, not just talking about Zelensky. They did the same thing. You saw Yatsenyuk, as I showed on a stream once, telling a Western journalist, I took over a country with just 10,000 euros in the treasury. After Maidan, we really made changes. It's true, there were only 10,000 euros. The treasury was empty after Yanukovych. But you didn't bring the budget into surplus. You didn't cut expenses. You went to the IMF, took on a bunch of obligations, things like that. You made people's lives worse. You made people's lives worse. The famous tightening of belts. And everyone had to tighten their belts except for Yatsenyuk and his gang. By the way, Yatsenyuk's bosses are the same people, the same ones behind Prytula. Those are the right questions, Tatiana. It doesn't take much brain power to borrow money. An accountant or a lawyer can do that for you. What's important is a reformer, so you can see real results. I really want people to understand this in detail. That's my personal interest.
I hope people will look into this because you're always talking about GDP, about the economy, about how to live, where the money will come from, and who will invest what. Let's clarify about this agreement. People are waiting for these 90 billion because they say you won't get pensions, the military won't get salaries, we won't be able to manage without this money. It is clearly spelled out in this agreement, which was ratified in the Verkhovna Rada today. Ukraine will repay these 90 billion euros exclusively through future Russian reparations. If I may ask you, as someone knowledgeable in economics, if Russia does not pay us reparations, then how will we repay this money? In what way?
I promise.
And secondly, why should we have to repay them? Today, Zelensky is in Sweden, and there he is buying, I forgot the name of that missile.
I understood everything. Everyone understood. Gripen, that's right.
He says that 150 units will be purchased. But now only a few will be bought, and then 10, 16 figures like that. But now, this means by the end of 2027 with the money that the Europeans are giving us. But they are giving us this money as a loan. Why do we have to pay them back, in your opinion?
Because Zelensky needs to stay in power. That's the answer to the first question. How do we pay it back if Russia doesn't provide reparations? Spoiler. Russia won't pay reparations. Any reasonable person knows that. They'll just take on new debt, Tatiana. They'll take on new debt, a new burden for the citizens of Ukraine, making life in the country unbearable. And to pay off the previous one. Someone like Yatsenyuk will sit down, take on the debt, and then say, I led the country out of crisis, but we had such huge debts. I remind people, our national debt is over 100% of GDP. If people say it's the same in America, remember, America has plenty of investments, money pouring in, the Federal Reserve, the printing press, and it knows what it's doing. This is already being discussed, and expenses will be cut, and the national debt paid off here too. I think this will be done with the help of cryptocurrency. Trump has a serious team, serious ideas. Second, why should we pay the European Union back? Ukraine should declare a default on its foreign debt after the war. The new president should announce it immediately. That's what I would do. I'm not saying this to insult Europeans or cheat them out of money. No, I'm saying our country is covered in blood, our people have died. Millions of people have died and millions have come to you destitute. We need to get back on our feet. We are not going to live in war here for the rest of our lives. That's why we're not paying you back anything. We are starting from scratch, from zero, but for real and honestly. That's what any normal president would do, and there's nothing to fear. As for the rest, Europe is busy with some nonsense. Kaja Kallas insults the United States, spreads a fake today that the American embassy in Kiev has left. But the embassy says, "What are you talking about? We're here." So she's provoking. Did you think otherwise? So Europe, the European Union, is supposedly going to restrict the work of Starlink and Amazon to bring in their own alternatives. But those are Putin-style methods. You know what that is? That's import substitution. Remember how Putin did it? Instead of McDonald's, there's some McVanya there. Import substitution. Do you know why Starlink and Amazon are such giants? Because they're better. Better in their field. In Europe, no company can compete with them. It's not because Elon Musk or Bezos or Trump or the United States are somehow bad. In those conditions, in that bureaucracy, you can't grow to that level. You'll be crushed by taxes, bureaucracy, paperwork. You'll say, forget this business. Or you'll go to America, or take a job for 1,500 or 2,000 euros, live like everyone else, as they want, making everyone equal. Globalist propaganda tells the youth, the Zoomers, you don't need to own a car or apartment, just rent everything your whole life. The main thing is that you have sneakers and you walk around Paris. Don't think about the rest, we'll think for you. Think about the climate. Go think about the climate.
It's no longer relevant. They have now admitted that the money they spent on this climate issue probably didn't go in the direction they intended, because it's very difficult for scientists to study this. Now, this question is open. It's impossible to determine what affects the climate or recover the money, so the question remains unresolved. Just like we forgot how the war started, how we surrendered territory, it's the same with the climate now. Europeans present this issue in this way, Chumus.
Yes, but this whole climate thing, I want to tell people, it's all a scam. There is no global warming. It's just a great topic to influence young people and the budget. Do you know what kind of budgets are allocated for this? These Greta Thunbergs, Grets and Thunbers. That's what all this is for, so that certain people can live well, travel to nice hotels, eat at good restaurants, and have budgets. But the budget...
People pay taxes, we were told. They said we have to save money, well, or tighten our belts. We saved on ourselves, on food, on our children to pay for the climate, which hasn't been proven, and it's not proven where our money went. This was done in Europe. In Ukraine, the situation is different with the dynasty, you say. You would declare default, but now if we are taking money and we understand that we have no way to pay it back and we are taking more loans, then we declare default. Well, it gives the impression that we are some kind of crazy people. I don't know.
How is that? Wait, now I'm getting money and no one mentions default. Are you taking EU money? Are we declaring default? No, they're taking the money. Zelensky will take money for you, maybe with obligations. They'll say change Ukraine's flag. Put, I don't know, purple instead of blue there. He'll say fine, if you give 10 billion or 20 billion, that's how things work. He must stay in power to avoid joining Yermak as a defendant, so he keeps presidential immunity. And believe me, everything revolves around this. The war needs to end, Tatiana, and nothing else works here. You just said there's no money. You're talking about European missiles. Look at what's happening. Why are you threatening Putin, acting all connected, walking around, and then Trump speaks up? Trump, I'm writing a letter urgently asking for Patriots and Firepoint to build offensive missiles. Something doesn't add up. Something doesn't add up. I mean, this is showing off at the expense of the people. If we don't have air defense missiles, people will suffer. The people of Ukraine, my family, probably your family, my friends, your friends. I don't agree with this. People didn't sign up for this, and one madman can't do such things in our huge country.
Against the backdrop of everything that's happening, all this horror, by the way, Beletsky, whom we talked about, someone said he could be a future president, but people won't elect him because they don't see why they should. He says that right now in Ukraine, these are almost the best times for offensives and defense, meaning we have advantages. The fact that people from Kostiantynivka need to have fun, yes, they need to have fun, but a soldier wrote in his post that Ukrainian men are not having fun. It's very difficult to do that from there. They're being urged to evacuate, but they're not doing it, the soldier writes, because they're afraid of being mobilized. So we've somehow reached a point where men in Ukraine are more afraid of Russian drones, missiles, and ballistic missiles than of the Ukrainian authorities. How did we get to this point so quickly in just 4 years?
Maybe it's the opposite. They fear the authorities more than the missiles. So it's the authorities.
They're more scared of Ukrainian authorities than Russian missiles.
Yes. Well, this is just lawlessness from the Territorial Recruitment Center. As for Beletsky's statements, I understand why this is being done. That's why I try to teach people not to react emotionally to the news. There's an information war going on. This is an information war. That is, some people need to calm others down. Some want to believe in it. Go ahead. You see, for them, it's a good situation as they see it. No names, just those who think that way. I consider how many people will die, how many strikes will hit Kyiv and other Ukrainian cities, how much the war will be prolonged, and whether this affects negotiations positively or negatively. Yesterday, Anna Paulina Luna, she's an American congresswoman, reposted Zelensky on X and wrote that 2 Democrats came to see him, senators and also that other one. He writes that by continuing the war, you are undermining President Trump. You have an offer on the table, accept peace and stop messing around. That's how it is.
But we see the reform of the armed forces of Ukraine, again against the backdrop of the money that the Europeans are allocating to us. Look, we have to buy missiles from Sweden and give them back the money they are lending us as a loan. We will buy these missiles in the coming years. By 2027, 16 of them, 16. But it will take a huge amount of money. I don't even know what these 16 missiles can do. But the reform, please comment on the reform. They are raising pay for rear area troops from 20 to 30,000. And for those who are infantry, they get from 250 to 400,000 hryvnias, depending on the intensity of the fighting. Also, with the money that will be given by Europeans. Europeans, do you think this is a real event, a real reform?
No, it's not a reform. They're just trying to do what should have been done earlier. They're trying to buy the loyalty of the military. And like, guys, you agree that the war shouldn't be ended, right? Well, if it's 400 and not 300, if it's, how much did you say? 30 and not 20. So is it true that the war shouldn't be ended? That's a power play. As for Sweden's missiles, think about why they're patting Zelensky on the shoulder and hugging him there. We gave you a loan, and you bought missiles from us. Remember, I told you that someone got a new Mercedes at your expense, and you were given an old Daewoo Lanos to drive. Of course, you would hug such a person if someone gave you a new Mercedes that someone else would pay for on credit. Wouldn't you hug them? That's why they hug. But 16 missiles, that's laughable from a military point of view. That's good news. Now they'll show this to the supporters. Look, they'll say, well, after all, Zelensky is the right person for the job. Just look at this foreign policy. Without him, we'd have gotten nothing. When Yelysevych tries to discuss details, Prytula quickly interrupts, calling him a collaborator. But Ermak is not a collaborator. Zelensky is not a collaborator. Their whole pack is not a collaborator. These ministers, Halushchenko, Mindich, are not collaborators. They are not collaborators. Have you ever heard Prytula discuss the dynasty cooperative at all? And the surname Mindich in Syria, he immediately turns everything into his crude joke. Ridiculing something is also a technique, making fun of a serious issue. Do you know what else he wrote? He wrote something like, to someone else. People sent me a screenshot of the conversation. Like, I Googled this Yelysevych, I figured it all out. He's making money off you. And you told me today that people are kind of exploiting sensitive topics. Am I the one who announces a fundraiser after every shelling? Remember, for Rosaris, for Pomsta, Rusoris. They were raising money for Pomsta and the drone army, which didn't exist yet when they collected the funds. So maybe they're using sensitive, scary, bloody topics to organize fundraisers and collect money. Maybe that's how it looks. I have nothing to do with that. Here's another technique for you.
What can you do? All you can do is spread this information to people, share it, and judge it with common sense. Just apply common sense to it. Regarding this reform, you need to understand it. A new contract system for the military is being planned. Clear terms of service up to 2 years are expected. That is, a serviceman must serve for 2 years. If that's the case, if this is implemented, then those servicemen who already volunteered and those who are currently serving have all been in service for more than 2 years. It means they should be sent home for rest. How can we replace them? In your opinion, how does the government plan to do this?
They are counting on grabbing at least 30,000 men off the streets every month. There is no other plan. And believe me, some of these so-called media barbershops are coming out. I get sent these things. Whenever they send them, they're always laughing, showing off, and they want someone else to fight for them. No one has ever heard anyone say, I'll just sit here while you go fight. The war needs to end. I don't want rotation. I don't want to replace these guys for someone else to replace them, for them to die. The war needs to end so that everyone can come home.
Now, to wrap up our conversation, let's talk about an immoral topic or a goldmine for corrupt offices. Journalists have found out that the state budget of Ukraine receives only 5% in taxes from the huge incomes of Ukrainians on the OnlyFans platform. Since men can't leave the house, women are the ones earning money. Everyone earns however they can in whatever way they want. In 4 years, our citizens have earned $250 million. But people are afraid to declare this money because instead of gratitude, Yelysevych writes, for paying taxes, the state can give them up to 7 years in prison for pornography and up to 12 years for money laundering. The Verkhovna Rada blocked the adoption of this bill. Other speakers who sometimes come on our show say, how can we allow this officially in Ukraine now? How can we do all this when our country is in trouble? And so we will just sink even lower morally than we are now. We will sink into moral decay. What do you say?
I'll tell you, it's good that you brought up this topic. Look, I mean, when a cop, a high-ranking cop, and not just one across the whole country, the SBU guys took them down on purpose, this whole thing was done intentionally. When a cop comes to a young girl, I don't approve of this activity, I'm telling you right away. But if a person, a girl, chose this path for herself, let's say, even if it's temporary, a cop comes to her and says, you pay me this many $1,000s and you keep doing what you're doing. Is that moral? Do people believe that if they're told something doesn't exist, it really doesn't? It does exist. You just don't know or choose to ignore it. And now there's a second alternative. These girls register as sole proprietors in the third group and pay 5% of their turnover. And that's it. Third, are we some kind of puritanical country, religious with Sharia laws or something? What kind of nonsense is that? Are these deputies going to lecture us about morality? These are deputies. Compared to a deputy, an OnlyFans girl is child's play. We don't need to hear about morality from the mouths of people's deputies.
I remember I once spoke on this very topic. Kamelchuk, a people's deputy, will be there, as was mentioned, or for some reason will be there. And I worked at a TV channel. I used to go out and ask people on the street whether they were for or against opening brothels in Ukraine. And 70 out of 50 people surveyed were in favor. And most of them were women. Women said that it should be accessible. Why do you think that is? And maybe there wasn't a war back then and people were happier, more enthusiastic. And now it's really not the time for that. And how will people look at us? We have such chaos and now prostitution on top of it. Just open, blatant, use it however you want.
Still, it's not prostitution, but I'm for the legalization of prostitution and for the legalization of pornography. I was the first to propose this. My reform program was published in April 2023. Where was it? They took point 3 from there and twisted it. But still, they're peaking. Look, today I was told that in Germany, to open a brothel, the license costs 7,000 euros. In the Netherlands, you must explain what's going on. You see, someone might watch, someone might say something, it's all just nonsense, and honestly, that's not even an argument, excuse me. This money has to be legal. The modern world, maybe we don't like it, but it is what it is. And we need to adapt our legislation to that. And our government, I'll explain to you, Tatiana, it's not about Puritanism, not about religion, not about war, not about anything else. In our country, and in Russia as well, in Soviet-style totalitarian countries, the law always has to be set up so the state can always nail you. So that this cop could come and demand a bribe from you for soft drugs, for gambling, for pornography, for prostitution, so that the government, so that this guy with a badge could cause you problems, could make money off you. That's how everything is set up. It's not for the people. And I'm fighting for it to be for the people. Minarchism. A small government, a big country, but a small government for the people. Not people as expendable material for the state. Prytula will say he has poor eyesight and 4 children. He probably even had a child on purpose, like a year ago or 2 years ago, so that he would have 3 minors, so that, you know. And I also have poor eyesight, and I have kids, you see? And does his relative also have poor eyesight and kids? No, he'll tell you, go fight. Then he asks you for a donation, and then he insults you for it.
But for now, there's no end in sight, because Rubio said that Trump left the negotiations, but he might come back. He says he can return when we're ready, but for now, we're not ready. You recently wrote a post on your Telegram channel about what you think or how you know, but you don't want to say how you know. Trump will still return to the peace talks.
If you don't want to say where you got this information, then when do you think he will return? And why will he return? What motivates him to come back to the Ukrainian negotiations?
Even if I have such information, it's not a guarantee. I have this information, I'm sharing it, nothing more, nothing less. A lot will now depend on the situation in Iran. But it could happen under certain circumstances that something gets resolved and in, well, maybe 2 weeks, Trump will make a statement and the delegation will actually come to Kyiv. But again, that's probably how they think and plan in America, according to the source. But there is also the Almighty. I don't decide. I think he knows who the Almighty is, but the plan seems serious.
What should people do? Just write comments, share the video, subscribe to our channels, and make this information public.
And now about whether or not to address the deputies. Mazurashu says, address them in a proper way. You say that we should address them?
Or if there's no point. Whoever wants to, let them write these appeals to them. On social media, we need to attack, stop the war, demand Zelensky's resignation in writing. That's it for Zelensky's impeachment. Of course, they need to be pressured. What am I doing with you right now? I'm putting pressure on the people's deputies as well.
And we or their friends are constantly being pressured. People, only you support us, really, only people. When I read the comments, it lifts my spirits. That's what gives us the strength to read these terrible news. Comments from those who don't like something, what they write in private messages. People, thank you for your support. Until next time. Thank you, Dennis.
Thank you, see you. Thank you.
Dank.